At this time, we'll call the CAC meeting to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Cunha?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Here.
Mr. Clark? Oh, thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Mr. Clark?
Here.
Ms. Zimmerman?
Here.
Ms. Brown? Mr. Harrell? Ms. Lopez?
Here.
Ms. Lopez, I'm sorry. Mr. Haldolf?
Here.
Mr. Savage? Ms. Byer? Mr. Williams?
Here. Mr. Savage is here. I just couldn't come off of mute.
Thank you. And Mr. Rios?
Here.
Ms. Austin Tebbett? Mr. Sanders? Ms. Deming? Ms. Dyer? Ms. Dyer?
Here.
Thank you. Ms. Julie Connell? Dennis Skidmore?
Denise here.
Oh, Denise, I'm sorry. Thank you. Mr. Leva?
I'm here.
Thank you. Mr. Helm?
Here.
Ms. Fax? Mr. Ramsey? Mr. Cryer? Mr. Crump? Ms. Morrow?
Here.
Ms. Matthews?
Here.
Mr. Ahmed? Mr. Ward?
Here.
Mr. Delgado? Mr. Cantu? Ms. Nugent?
Here.
Mr. O'Brien?
Here.
Thank
Here.
you. Thank you. Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Mataros? And Ms. Taylor? And then we have a quorum.
This is Orchard
Great.
Crier. Did you get me?
I'm sorry. Thank you so much. Is Mr. Cryer, I got you. Is there anybody's name who I did not call and is present?
Just one correction, the under Taylor for Tulare County, that is Brett Taylor, and he's on the Visalia City Council.
Thank you.
This is Laura Brown. I'm here as well.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. At this time, the roll call has been done, and we'll have a minute to approve the minutes for the May 3rd meeting on 2022. We'll take a minute for any of those folks that have any changes to the minutes. Please bring that forward at this time. If not, we'll assume the minutes will be passed as is, as written. Okay, at this time, we'll approve the minutes as of or is there any changes? I should ask, is there any changes from the?
We just need to have public comments.
Yes, yeah. Any changes from the north
No public
or
comments in the north.
public comment?
No public comments in the north.
Great, thank you. Going to the south, the board, any changes?
I don't believe there's anybody in the south, so no public comment.
Okay, and no public comment, thank you. Bringing it back here to central, any board members or public comment?
I do have one public comment.
Okay,
Lisa Flores, go ahead.
hello, please, go ahead.
Lisa, we cannot hear you.
Hi, guys. How are you doing? My time just started at 2:30 because it took you 30. Oh, thank you. Real quick, I just want to say hello. My name is Lisa Flores, and I'm on the AB 617 committee. And just wanted to introduce myself since this is the first time I've attended your meetings, and I look forward to a very fruitful experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, at this time, we'll approve the minutes as of May 3rd. Will go on the record. We'll go to item number 4, which is the public comment. The public comment is made available for the public to comment on items that do not appear on the agenda during this board meeting. And at that time, you will be able to come forward and present your items that are not on the agenda. Item number 5, chair comments. I want to just say thank you to all of you that made. Oh, well, that's true first. I'm sorry. Okay, is there any public comment in the north?
We have no members of the public in the north.
Okay, let's go to the south. Okay, bringing it back here. I don't see any public comment.
And
So
I do have a public comment on Zoom,
Okay, great.
and we have Lisa Flores again.
I'm sorry, I didn't know I was gonna. Hello?
Hi, Lisa. Go ahead.
Okay, I didn't know whether you can hear me or not because the little doohickey didn't show up. Just real quick, I want to just bring up on everybody's radar what's happening in Fresno. Currently, there is a motion in front of the city council for the city of Fresno to change some zoning to high density and really subvert the CEQA process, what I believe to be subverting the CEQA process for review, including air quality. And I think that this is something that each of our communities need to start looking at, is how is the cities and the counties that we're dealing with deal with issues of planning and trying not to subvert not only CEQA, but also what's happening in Fresno is going to directly impact communities of color, low income, and traditional communities where there's been a gross amount of environmental racism. So that's the only thing I want to bring up to your attention today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other Zoom or?
I do not see any more public comment. Thank you.
All right, great. All right, we'll proceed to move from item 4 to item number 5. Again, I just want to say thank you to all of the CAC members that got on today on Zoom and those that appeared here at the office. It is very, very important that we try to have a quorum every time. So that means we all have to work together to secure those different committees in the different counties. And if you need me to help you in any way or shape, please. I will try to do what I can to help get folks appointed by the county to the different seats between the city and the environmental and the industry ag. So again, I want to thank all of you for taking the time, and let's move on. Item number 6, Executive Director.
Thank you, Manuel. This is Shiraz Gill, one of the deputies here at the district. I know we were dark in July, so just wanted to welcome everybody back. Hope everyone had a chance to take some time off, refresh themselves, and just looking forward to working with you all the rest of the year. So that's all I have for today. Can move forward.
My word.
Pretty short today.
That is definitely short. Well, thank you very much. All right, let's go to item number 7, the update on the attainment plan and rules. Jesse.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of CAC. I am Jessie Fierro, and I am the Director of Air Quality Planning here at the district. You have your usual plan and rule update in your packet. I'm going to skip the plans for now because I will be giving you a presentation about the plans later on in this meeting. But I do want to highlight some of the open regulatory actions the district is currently working on. In particular, I want to point out that the district is in the process of amending Rule 2201, that is our new and modified stationary source review rule. We held a scoping meeting in April of 2022 and a public workshop on June 29th, 2022. At this point, we are working with other agencies and stakeholders to solicit comments and address those comments and get our proposed rule ready for public hearing, probably in late 2022 or early 2023. Another rule or set of rules we're working on are the LDAR rules. That's the leak detection and repair rules that impact petroleum refining facilities. There are several rules that are being amended together. We've held several public meetings. The most recent one was on March 10th of 2022. We anticipate a public hearing on these rules later on in 2022. We have not set a month yet for that. We are also working on Rule 4550, Conservation Management Practices. We've had a rule on the books for a long time and we've gotten some great PM10 emissions reductions from that rule, but under our last PM 2.5 plan, we committed to looking at that rule for additional PM 2.5 emissions reductions. And we are carefully reviewing the data on the existing CMP rule and practices that are currently being implemented by the Valley's growers. We expect to report back to our board by the end of 2022. And then the last rule I wanted to highlight today is Rule 4460, Petroleum Refinery Fence Line Monitoring. This was a rule that we adopted a few years ago, and we are reopening the rule to respond to some points that were raised during litigation. We held public workshops on this rule. The most recent was on June 28th of this year, and we anticipate taking this rule to our governing board in 2022. I suspect that one will go in September, but as always, for all of our rules, please check in on our plans, our workshops part of the district's website, and you are always welcome to email me directly if you have any questions about any of our rule or plan projects. That concludes my update.
Great, thank you. At this time, if there's any CAC members, questions of Jesse, please, at this time, from the north. Any questions for Jesse? In the south? Bring it back here to the central. If not, now I open up to the public. Public in the north.
No public comments in the north.
Public in the south. There's no one in the south. Bring it back here to the central. I don't see anybody. So great. Thank you very much. We look forward to your presentation, the rest. Okay, item number 8, verbal report from the California Resources Board. Who do we have online?
We have Laura Carr.
Okay, Laura.
Hi, good morning.
Laura, please go.
Hi, thank you. This is Laura Carr with the California Air Resources Board. Very, very quick comments from me this morning. As with the district, the California Air Resources Board was also dark in July, so we don't have a board meeting to provide an update on here. I'll just take a second to say that, as per usual, the update provided in your packet also includes a section on upcoming public workshops and meetings, as well as upcoming trainings, which you can register for, and there's more information on a link there. So I just wanted to take the opportunity of not having a board meeting to report on, just to highlight and remind CAC members that the update in your packet also includes those two sections. And that's all for me today.
Yes, Laura, question on your scoping plan that you're going to have this Wednesday. You've had 3 of them in the state. You've had one in Oakland, which was last week, I believe, and it was attended by various people, but very professional and respected everybody's opinions, and not like the last board meeting that was in Sacramento. And then your second one will be in Los Angeles. This Wednesday, you will be having another one at Fresno City College, starting at 5:30, I believe, to 8:30. Do you have any information on that scoping plan of the major plan we'll be going over, or if it's just electric cars only?
Thanks, Mr. Chair, for the question. Unfortunately, I don't have any information on that. That's very far outside my wheelhouse. I can work on tracking down the appropriate CARB staff person to get in touch with you so that they can follow up and get you an answer to your questions there.
Yeah, that would be great to have. If we could have that before maybe the next 15 or 20 minutes, that would be great. If you can come back and let us know that you've got somebody here. We're going to try to get, there's some people here that have to leave earlier today by 11, so we want to make sure we accommodate their needs. But if you could please do that, Laura, that would be great. At this time, let me go to if there's any CAC members. Any questions of Laura? All right, let's go to the public.
I do not see any comments on Zoom.
Okay, all right, great. All right, let's go to, we'll come back to that. I'll make a note of it, waiting for Laura to come back with maybe somebody can come online and tell us what's going on Wednesday, being that it's a big, huge hearing or scoping plan in the Valley. Okay, let's go to item number 9. Tom Jordan. Tom?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. So I'm going to talk briefly about activities around the state budget and kind of what's been resolved and what hasn't, and then talk about a couple of bills that are of particular interest that are still moving along. As you all are aware, this budget year was the largest budget in California's history. There was a huge surplus in the general fund and a lot of activities, a lot of input from the district and others interested in air quality along the process. And the legislature met their statutory requirement to have a budget in place by the end of the fiscal year, basically by June. But in fact, it was more of on the issues we're concerned with, it was more of a budget framework than actually a budget. So they had top line numbers, but a lot of the detail wasn't there for some of the issues that we're interested in. There were a couple of things that were funded. Of note, AB 617, there was a commitment to provide ongoing funding at what I'll call a base amount for AB 617. That includes both funding for the operation of the district's work and the committees, the air monitoring and all of that, as well as incentive funding at the same level it's been for the last number of years. So for those of you that have been involved in AB 617, it started off with a relatively small number of communities statewide, and every year the Air Resources Board has added new communities. However, the funding has not gone up along with that additional workload throughout the state. And so while it's great that we've seen a commitment to ongoing base funding, at a level that was commensurate with the smaller number of communities in the early year of the program. I think a lot of us would like to see more funding put towards that program to recognize the additional workload that additional communities add to the Air District, and to provide more money to actually get emission reductions, which is the really important part of the program in disadvantaged communities throughout the valley. So we're going to continue to push on that front. The question was asked at the time the budget was adopted whether there was an opportunity for additional money, and we were encouraged to keep asking for that. So the San Joaquin Valley Air District, other air districts around the state continue to push for more funding in that front. Another area that we received funding that we've been advocating for is the farmer program. Last year's budget included a 2-year commitment for the farmer program. The first year was over $200 million. I think it was $240 million. And then the second year commitment was for $150 million. And so they actually did include that $150 million for the farmer program in the budget that was adopted in June. The San Joaquin Valley has typically gotten about 80% of those funds. So it's a very important program to us for doing all kinds of work, from replacing tractors to electrification of, yard vehicles and that kind of a thing. So that's an important that it was in there. But again, given the budget surplus that we had, we were hoping that number would be higher. And we think there's still an opportunity for that. Both of those programs were typically funded, both 617 and Farmer, out of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, or the Cap and Trade Fund. They did not allocate the lion's share of those cap and trade funds. They basically punted that till August, so for this coming month, to make a lot of those decisions. So we continue to advocate for funding to get emission reductions from a variety of mobile sources in the state budget as those discussions continue at the legislature. Additionally, the budget included a huge funding amount over the next multiple fiscal years. It's like, in total, it's about $20 billion for electrification of mobile source operations. There are some top line details in that commitment, but there's a lot still yet to be decided on what those funds actually mean and how they'll be broken down. One of the things that we've pushed hard for is sustainable agricultural type projects where there are opportunities. So things like yard trucks, electric forklifts, further electrification of ag pumps, electric feed mixers at dairies. So there are a lot of opportunities still to get emission reductions from that pot. But as I mentioned, the discussions are ongoing still for that large pot of money over the next multiple years. The states, in the discussion surrounding that funding, the discussion of electrifying, light duty vehicles, the governor's executive orders on electrifying trucks and port equipment and all that. So that's all part of that big pot of money, and there'll be a lot of discussions to come about how that money is actually broken out. So we continue to advocate strongly on the Valley's need for being prioritized for any funding that can get emission reductions from the mobile source side of things. We are in the last month of the legislative session. The legislature came back on Monday. They have to complete their work by August 31st. Yesterday was the Senate Appropriations Committee, and there are 2 bills of particular interest to the district that were on that agenda. One of them that we support and one that we oppose. The first one that we support is AB 2836, and that bill extends the Carl Moyer program for a 10-year period, and it also extends the Air District's authority for a special DMV fee that's only here in the San Joaquin Valley, that raises about $35 million a year for us to put towards emission reduction projects here in the Valley. Those funds are locally directed, so they're very important to us here in our effort to continue to get emission reductions. And that bill, so far, there is not, it's been unanimous support for that bill, both bipartisan Republican and Democratic support. And so yesterday in the Appropriations Committee, it was sent to the suspense file, which was expected because there's cost associated with it. And that hearing will be on August 11th. And so any of you that are interested in supporting that bill moving to the floor and ultimately being approved, that's the next opportunity to support that bill. The other bill that the Air District opposes is AB 2550 by Assemblymember Arambula, that would basically provide requirements that ARB do more activities on stationary sources and provide more oversight that's redundant in the San Joaquin Valley, do additional air monitoring. It was also in the Appropriations Committee yesterday. That hearing started at 10 a.m. yesterday, and this bill came up at 10:30 last night. So the hearing had gone on all day long. We spoke in opposition to the bill. Department of Finance, so basically the administration's access to this process, spoke in opposition to the bill based upon its cost and the fact that, you know, they didn't see a big benefit and there would be ongoing pressures on the Air Pollution Control Fund. And so that bill also will be heard on August 11th on the suspense hearing. And so we have submitted letters in support of 2836 and in opposition to 2550. So after that hearing, that's the last chance for bills that have a cost associated with them to be approved. Same thing will happen on the Assembly side. They then go to the floor. In the case of 2836, if it's passed on the floor, it will go to the governor for signature. 2550 was amended in the Senate, so it would have to go back to the Assembly for a concurrence vote if it does make it off of suspense and off the Senate floor. So that's a quick overview of a couple highlights of things we're interested in. There are a lot of other issues going on that we're involved in, but those I think are the ones that are probably most noteworthy to mention today. So thank you, Mr. Chair, and any questions I'd be happy to try to answer.
Super. Thank you very much, Tom. At this time, I'll open it up to the CAC members. If there's any questions of Tom Jordan on his budget report and legislative activities, at this time, please. I think there's one item that may add to maybe the discussion, maybe even with Ned and a few others, is these extra dollars, is that AB 5, which was the independent truckers, is an absolute disaster for many small businesses, small individuals that own their own trucks. And they impact this valley. They're getting ready here in the next couple of weeks to haul grapes and to haul tomatoes and many other products. And those people live in rural communities. Has there been any type of discussion with ARB to help fund these getting used trucks, because used trucks are very, very difficult? As Freightliner quoted 2 weeks ago to Chairwoman Leanne, it's out about a year and a half before you can get a new truck, if you're lucky to get that at that time. So the used truck program is the only thing that's out there for many of these individuals, because their trucks will run out of service come January 1 of 2023. Tom, was there any type of opportunity to get some of this excess money and to provide this to these EJAG type communities to help them? Because AB 5 is going to destroy them enough as it is, but alone, not even being able to have any type of financial help. Is there anything in the alerts?
So it's actually the freight situation is, there's a lot of pressures right now, which you mentioned AB 5. There's also a deadline in the truck rule for trucks of a certain age to be retired. And based upon SB 2 a few years ago, is that the right number? Anyway, the funding for the highway program, there was a commitment that trucks that aren't compliant can't be registered. So there's a whole bunch of things coming together right in the middle of a supply chain problem that we have of getting goods to market. So you're right, this is a big problem. We've raised the issue with ARB. I'm aware of some flexibility that's been given in current grant programs as far as timing of when a truck has to be destroyed versus when the new one's received, and some things like that. But I am not aware of any additional large funding opportunity to deal with that issue. We have shared, along with a lot of other people, the impending problem that we see coming, but I have not heard of a resolution to that at this point.
Okay, great, thank you. Any board members of questions of Tom? Anybody? Okay, if not hearing, somebody?
Hi, this is Laura Brown. I was just curious, when we were talking about the farmer funding, how much money, I guess this is for Mr. Jordan, how much money were you hoping to get this year with kind of the increased budget surplus?
So we had requested that the farmer program be at least funded at last year's level, which was about $240 million. And they met the commitment from last year's budget, but we hoped with the budget surplus, it could be plussed up from what they committed to. And then in addition to that, it's not necessarily farmer, but we had discussions with agriculture and others about other opportunities that we saw to electrify equipment. And it won't work for all of ag, but there are opportunities that align with some of the state goals to do electric and other things. And so we'd come up with an opportunities that were in excess of $500 million if there was funding available. And again, we're hopeful some of that will be funded as the discussions continue, but we haven't seen it at this point.
Thank you.
Okay, Laura?
Perfect.
Okay, anybody else? CAC members? If not, let's go to the public in the north.
No public comments in the north.
Public in the south? No public in the south? Okay, great. Bring it back here to central. No public. Okay, great.
I do have a public comment on Zoom.
Oh, please.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Hi, it's Lisa Flores again. My question to the Air District is, in regards to Arambulas bill, in Fresno, in the AB 617 program, we have, we're always having some of our stationary positions breaking down. So I actually support 2550. And my other question in regards to the Air District, have you guys thought about redoing how you're structured to be more efficient with your time and your energy of your staff? That's all I have to offer. Thank you.
That's not on the agenda.
So as far as 2550 goes, I would say 2550 doesn't deal with 617 issues. So in summary, 2550 deals with attainment plans for the federal standards that we're required to meet. And it basically says if we fail to attain by a deadline, ARB would come in and kind of override our local process and look at stationary sources. We think it's a very misdirected idea. Stationary sources are now about 15% of the NOx emissions. Mobile sources are about 85%. We've time and time again, the federal government has analyzed our rules on stationary sources and found it would be the most stringent in the country. So we don't see many opportunities if ARB came in to get additional emission reductions. We continue to look at those sources and try to find any opportunity there is. We think the resources of the state and the efforts of ARB should be spent looking at mobile sources and how to get reductions from the 85% that they and EPA control, rather than spending a lot of resources kind of checking our work and providing even more oversight than they already do, because they already have authority to provide oversight of our local programs. So we don't see there being any benefit, and we see it as a huge cost at both the state level and the local level to add this additional process. So I don't think the issues you're seeing in 617 would be addressed by 2550, because that's a broader attainment strategy bill. As far as the air district operations, we continue to look at any way we can make our operations more efficient. And I think if you look at if you look at us compared to any other air district, we have the lowest fees. I think we're definitely one of the most efficient agencies to deal with the issues that we deal with. But we're not resting on our laurels. We believe in constantly looking and finding ways to be more efficient. So that's something that's ongoing.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Yeah, the air district and the staff between the other two offices, you folks do one heck of a job. And especially when you're running all of the state programs, the bus program for the entire state, and you run more money through the systems, even for EJAG, even for 617, you do a tremendous job. And 2550, as I'm speaking as an individual, is absolutely worthless, in that there are much more things that we have done more effectively and can do more effectively than trying to have ARB come in and mess with that when they can't even deal with the bus and truck rule correctly. And that is a wreck right now, a huge wreck. And that's why these truck strikes are going to continue and even prevail more because of what has been done. And so, no, I agree that 2550 is absolutely worthless to the benefit of this district, and to even 617 doesn't even get to it. So, but the staff have done a tremendous job, and especially with all the $500, $600 million in grants that you guys run through your system for schools and everything else has been tremendous. So, very good. No longer any public comment. We'll go now to, thank you very much, Tom, very much. We'll go to, pardon? We're okay? Okay. Let's go to item number 10. The young lady is back for a second round. She just don't give us enough. She has to give us more.
A lot's been going on. I have so much to tell you all. Hello again. Jessie Fierro back to tell you what's going on with our air quality plans for particulate matter and ozone. There is a lot going on, but I promise I'm trying to get through this in about 15 minutes or so, and I'm happy to take questions afterwards. So first of all, our ongoing plan efforts. As you know, our air quality plans are one of the key vehicles for improving air quality in the San Joaquin Valley. They're certainly not the only vehicle, but when we're talking about regional particulate matter and ozone concentrations, our state implementation plans are where that work really happens. Each plan builds on the work of our prior plans while establishing the path for continued air quality improvements. After each plan is adopted, we spend a lot of time working through additional regulatory development, which I told you about this morning, outreach, continued research, and incentive programs. Each attainment plan is really a checkpoint on this continuing effort to improve air quality in the San Joaquin Valley. These efforts have been very successful so far. We're not done, but we've certainly made a lot of progress. When you look from 1980 to 2021, so much emissions reductions have occurred in that time frame. Gosh, back in 2007, when we did the 2007 ozone plan, our NOx inventory at that time was about 450 tons per day, and we are below 200 tons per day of NOx. And that still blows my mind when I think about all the work that was needed to achieve those emissions reductions. And every sector of the valley contributed to that work to get sound emissions reductions for our region. And those emissions reductions have resulted in improvements in our regional PM 2.5 and ozone air quality. These graphics show you, we have 24-hour averages here on the left and annual averages on the right. And when you look between 2003 and 2025, As we see those red and orange and yellow areas decrease in size and eventually go away entirely, we are getting really good progress on PM 2.5, which is a challenging pollutant for our region. Also, very good progress on valley ozone standards. Keeping in mind that for PM 2.5 and ozone, there are multiple federal standards that we have to achieve. So our journey is far from done, but we've made a lot of progress on that journey, and that progress is contributing to attainment for all federal standards. I want to give you some updates on what's been happening with the PM 2.5 plan that was actually adopted about 4 years ago at this point. The San Joaquin Valley adopted the 2018 PM 2.5 plan in collaboration with CARB in late 2018, and that plan is still going through EPA's process. It takes a while. And that plan dealt with 3 different standards. It was a very complicated plan. And EPA has been processing the components of that plan through 3 or more separate processes. So it's gotten more and more complex as time has gone on. In terms of the 1997 standard, that was the first PM 2.5 standard EPA set. And this was not the first plan that dealt with this standard, but it was the latest in a series of plans. In September of 2021, though, we got good news in that EPA found that the Valley had attained the 24-hour component of that standard. Each of these PM 2.5 standards has both a 24-hour and an annual component. So being able to check one of those components off of our list is a good thing. But we still need to go through some procedures for the annual component of that standard. And we were required to submit serious plan components. That's what EPA found on November 26, 2021. And in that action where EPA said, oh, you have to submit serious area components, they acknowledged that we had actually already sent it to them. So we've already addressed that request. EPA just hadn't finished processing it yet, but because of their own deadlines under the Clean Air Act, they had to issue that finding in November of 2021. We are working on a potential clean data finding to EPA for the annual component of this standard. There were some technical issues with the CARB's Bakersfield site and some exceptional events and siting issues that we are working through, but we believe the data shows that we have attained even the annual component of that standard. So that's great news, but we're still working through the process on that. For the 2006 standard, that was the second PM 2.5 standard that EPA established. EPA approved the plan in July of 2021 and then disapproved contingencies in November of 2021. I'm going to tell you more about contingency measures in just a moment. But the 2006 standard plan is mostly approved, so I'm going to set the rest of that plan aside for now. And then the third PM 2.5 standard that EPA set was in 2012. And again, the district addressed this as part of our giant 2018 PM 2.5 plan. We submitted with CARB additional technical information in October of 2021 to support EPA approval of that plan. And on December 29th of 2021, EPA proposed approval of that plan except contingencies. EPA has not yet finalized action, and I should have updated this point, which is one that I shared with the governing board back in June. EPA was supposed to take final action last week under a consent decree, but they are extending that. I haven't actually even seen the final consent decree. I'm going to have to dig that up. But EPA has not yet taken final action of that plan. So we're going to continue to keep an eye on that and work with EPA and CARB and others as needed to secure an approval of that plan. Again, a plan that was approved 4 years ago. I want to talk a little bit more about contingency measures, though. Contingency measures have historically been extremely challenging for our region. A contingency measure is supposed to be a fully adopted measure that you haven't actually implemented or used yet. It's your backup plan, and it is theoretically impossible to come up with one of these that actually works. And it's become even more challenging over the past 5 years or so because of some litigation and some lack of guidance from EPA. We have 4 potential contingency measure disapprovals that we need to grapple with from all 3 of the PM 2.5 standards and the 2008 8-hour ozone standard. I'm going to tell you more about why these are complicated in a section, but I just first want to establish that this is a real problem, not just for us. Regions nationwide are having problems with contingency measures. No region has been able to fully satisfy this requirement, not just us. But sanctions and FIP clocks are running. And so we are working on developing updated contingency measures. It's going to require significant analysis, innovation, outreach, and interagency coordination. It's not for lack of trying, it's because it's very, very difficult. As I said, interpretation has changed in recent years. As I mentioned, it's supposed to be fully adopted but not used. It can't be surplus reductions from already implemented measures. And then the amount of emissions we're talking about for a plan is huge. Even when you get someone who's like, oh, here's a contingency measure that could work, the amount of emissions reductions from that potential measure is minuscule compared to the amount you're required under current EPA's current baseline guidance. They require something called 1 year's worth of RFP. The court said you can't ignore this without a reasoned explanation. Although the court also said that you could look to creative measures like enhanced enforcement or other measures. So contingency measures are extremely challenging for us. Here's some more reasons why. A, or maybe I should number them. I end up mixing up my letters and numbers when I do lists that way. So I'm just going to say, here's one reason. We have non-attainment challenges under multiple NACs. I mentioned that earlier, how our planning process is a continuum. There's 3 PM 2.5 standards. There's 3 ozone standards. If we hold back contingency measures for one plan, we're going to risk having enough control measures for future plans. We have existing public health needs. Why would we hold back? Makes no sense. We are already implementing the most stringent stationary and mobile source emissions requirements available at this time. Numerous EPA findings support that. There's something called a contingency trigger, where these measures, not only are you supposed to not use them yet, they're supposed to implement basically automatically. This just isn't feasible for most control technologies. There's just a scarcity of measures, meaning this highly restrictive contingency measure definition. And my team and I, we've been reviewing every contingency measure action in the Federal Register over the past 5 years. They just don't exist. No one is meeting this requirement according to the current baseline EPA guidance. The amount of measures is very high. I hinted at that earlier. Here's the amount. It ranges from between 4 to 20 tons per day of NOx, depending on the SIP. Can you imagine having 20 tons per day of potential emissions reductions and saying, no, I'm not going to use that. I'm going to hold that back because I need to satisfy contingency measures. So we are working closely with CARB to prepare contingency packages because as hard as it is, we can't ignore it. There are existing FIP and sanctions clocks running. We are trying to get creative within the bounds of EPA's baseline policy and the various litigation that's occurred on contingency measures. We are working to establish a framework for meeting the intent of contingency measure requirements without delaying public health benefits. That's really key. We don't want to delay public health benefits. We want to present a scarcity analysis for the district and CARB. We have limited regulatory authority. When you look at the amount of emissions that have already been reduced, we don't even control the vast majority of it. We have limited regulatory authority. We already have very stringent measure in place. There's deployment challenges with the contingency trigger. While I do think it is unlikely we'd be able to meet the full amount of 1 year's worth of RFP, we are seeing what, if anything, we can do. We are actively reviewing potential contingency measures. And we are also requesting that EPA review options for contingency measures on their side for federal mobile sources under their jurisdiction or federal facilities under federal government control. We need to supply EPA a SIP submittal to address these requirements, and we are writing it up now. I anticipate that we'll have a public workshop later this summer. There's still a little bit of summer left, I think, and hopefully take it to our board this fall. So if you had fun listening to me rant about contingency measures these past 5 minutes, there's more to come at a future workshop. I want to shift gears though and tell you real quick about the 2022 ozone plan that we've been working on with CARB as well. The 2022 ozone plan control strategy is the modeling shows that this strategy will be effective in helping our region meet this third and most recent ozone standard. The district and CARB And this is the 2015 federal ozone standard, and we've been working with CARB on the attainment plan. We've seen tremendous progress in reducing ozone concentrations. The plan strategy includes significant emissions reductions that are still being achieved in the coming years through the district and CARB's control strategies. We've attained the 1 hour standard, and we're projected to attain the 84 ppb 8 hour standard. That was the one set in 1997, ahead of the 2023 target. So like PM 2.5, there's 3 ozone standards. The district measures in our 2022 plan in progress include numerous regulations with new emissions reductions in coming years, including recent amendments to the glass melting furnaces rule, internal combustion engines, boilers, ag burn phase out. And we are evaluating additional innovative measures to include in that plan as well, including landscape, zero emission heating, and more. CARB measures in the 2022 plan include things like state truck and bus regulation, advanced clean fleets, and potential updates to the statewide SIP strategy. Through the new emissions reductions from district and CARB measures, the plan shows a 62% reduction in NOx emissions by the 2037 attainment target. The plan relies on an extensive scientific foundation and includes an updated emissions inventory, ambient data analysis, reasonably available control technology demonstration, a very thorough weight of evidence analysis. And many of these documents were posted on May 24th of 2022. Other demonstrations are in progress, and we've actually made a lot of progress since our last workshop back in, May. And these demonstrations include the reasonable further progress, transportation conformity, contingency measures, and reasonably available control measures. But the good news is that as all of these plan elements come together, and the most important facet is that the initial modeling indicates that the valley will attain the 70 ppb 8 hour ozone standard in 2037 by the deadline, without need for a black box or anything like that, like we used in prior plans. The analysis includes wildfire impacts, so it is a sufficiently conservative analysis, and it confirms that the valley is highly NOx limited. Although VOC emissions are technically an ozone precursor, VOC emissions controls are much less effective here in the San Joaquin Valley because we're just a NOx limited region. Reducing NOx is what gets you the ozone reductions. As I alluded to earlier, we're really at a juncture where CARB and the district have been so effective in reducing emissions from sources under our control that if we're interested in meeting EPA's health-based standards as quickly as possible, we really need EPA to do more to reduce emissions from sources under their control. This graph shows emissions statewide, and you can see the blue line is California regulated sources, cars, trucks, and equipment, has decreased a lot between 2000, and is projected to decrease a lot between 2000 and 2040. And in 2020, you hit a crossroads where suddenly federally regulated sources like interstate trucks, planes, trains, ships, there are more emissions coming from the federal sources than state sources. So we're going to continue to advocate for the federal government to do their part in helping us achieve health-based standards. And we're seeing some progress there. We're going to continue to advocate. The district and CARB have been developing this plan through an extensive public process. We've been providing updates like board meetings, CAC meetings, EJAG meetings for a couple of years now. We've been holding public workshops since April 2021. We do anticipate holding another workshop later this summer to present the draft plan, including the strategy and all supporting technical elements. The public hearings for the district and CARB will be in late summer or early fall. And I believe that's it. Yes, it is. That concludes my presentation. I'm sorry it was a little longer than anticipated, but I just get really fired up when I talk about contingency measures. But at this point, I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Great. Thank you very much, Jesse. At this time, I'll open it up to the CAC members. Any comments, please? It was very simple, very easy. Not even complicated at all.
Not at all.
5 or 6 plans. What the heck?
Yeah.
Any comments from anybody? Ned, any comments?
Mr. Kuna, if I could, this is Christine Zimmerman. I just wanted to thank
Yeah, please.
Well, Jesse did such a fabulous job with that presentation. In the short few years that I've been on the CAC and working air issues for my association, she provides the most concise summary of all of these plans and how they ladder up under one another. And so I just wanted to acknowledge her excellent work and say thank you for making something so complicated a little more understandable to someone like me.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Hey,
Thank
Chairman,
you.
this is Christopher Smith from Oakdale, and
Yes.
Christine said it first, because I wanted to say that. I didn't want to look like I was kissing anybody's butt, but it was a very good presentation.
God.
And there was a lot of information given. I appreciate that you put it in such straightforward terms. You did a really good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ned, please, sir, go for it.
No, I'm not going to be too dogmatic, if you can hear me, or controversial. I'll just point out, I think we should congratulate what's gone on in the last 20, 30 years, dramatic reductions in all these criteria pollutants. I mean, even my beloved city of Stockton is under the 11 micrograms per meter cubed of PM 2.5. So, I mean, there's this tremendous benefits, but I'd always say, show me the drops in mortality and morbidity over the last 40 years. And that's where when you assess what is the cost benefit of additional reductions, it's very important, but there's no doubt about that. So I applaud the success, but I will always urge this committee, as they do others, to take a look at health benefits. And you should have seen a dramatic drop from some very good studies, which do not exist, of mortality and morbidity over the last 40 years because of the drops in these criteria pollutants. I'll also note, if you take a look at all the details, that when you get to PM 2.5, we're kicking up from natural sources, which seems to be a lot more than the anthropogenic sources. That's my comment. Thanks.
Thank you, Ned. Any other comments? Okay, if not, let's go to the public in the north.
No public comment in the north.
Great, thank you. The south, no public comment. Okay, let's bring it back here to the central. Any public comment? I don't see any. Okay, great.
Yeah, no public comment.
Okay, again, young lady, thank you for making
Thank
it
you.
so very simple. Only 10 or 12 pages, perfect. Thank you. All right, let's go to item number 11, 617.
Hello. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Jessica Olson. I am the Director of Community Strategies and Resources here at the district, overseeing the district's implementation of AB 617. And so I'll just dive right in and give sort of a brief update, although this is, I think, the most time. I promise not to take the full hour, but I think this is the most time I've ever been given. So I'm happy to take any questions at the end, since it has been a while and a lot of really great work has happened since you've last heard our update. So, of course, we've continued to meet regularly with all 4 community steering committees, or CSCs, and that's South Central Fresno, Shafter, Stockton, and then Arvin Lamont. And I'm really happy to report that really after over a year plus of tireless work with the Arvin Lamont community, the residents, the community advocates, the business representatives, all the agency partners, the Arvin Lamont Community Emissions Reduction Program, or CERP for short, received unanimous approval from the voting members of the CSC, and then was forwarded to the district's governing board and approved and adopted by the district's governing board in June. So it's really exciting. The next step is that it will go to CARB's board in October for final approval that is required with this CERP process. That CERP includes 31 measures that are a variety of different types of incentives, regulatory measures, enforcement measures, outreach measures, all really aimed at targeting the highest sources of community air quality concern, and includes over $30 million in investment in the community to achieve emissions reductions. In all, it really aims to, of course, target those criteria, pollutant emissions reductions and air toxics. And we're hoping to achieve over 700 tons over the lifetime of the CERP. So it's really exciting news, and definitely looking forward to the next step. Of course, in South Central Fresno, Shafter, and Stockton, we already have those adopted CERPs in place. And they're sort of at various stages of what we call implementation, meaning we take all of those measures that are in the SERPs and we try to work with the steering committees to hammer out some of the details, work with CARB, work with the district board to get those funded and moved forward. So in all three communities, we've actually recently worked with the CSCs to develop and support various requests for proposals for soliciting groups to plant trees for urban greening and vegetative barriers projects. And all of those RFPs are open or set to open later this week for each of those communities. So definitely a lot of progress recently. And over the next month, we do plan to come back to the district's board for approval for a variety of other incentive measures. So definitely look out for that update from us at our next update to you. Of course, in addition to SERP implementation, we are also required and have worked closely with the community on what we call our CAMP, which is the Community Air Monitoring Plans. So all of those plans have been underway again in various forms throughout the communities in the Valley. In Fresno and in Shafter, we have fully deployed the air monitoring networks. And so all of the air monitoring information is coming in for over a year, sometimes over 2 years, depending on when the various monitors were deployed. And we're helping report back all of that information to the community. It's all in real time, available online. And we're about halfway through deploying that same type of network in Stockton. In Arvin Lamont, we recently just deployed 3 real-time air monitors and just developed our newest air monitoring webpage for community members to take a look at that data. So we're really moving forward and really looking forward to getting continued feedback on both the SERP development process and the community air monitoring program process. So with that, that's my quick update. But again, I'm happy to take any questions or help provide further clarity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jessica. At this time, let's go to the CARB and then we'll come back.
Oh yeah, sorry. I totally apologize. I do have Brian Moore with me. Sorry, Brian. Brian Moore, thank you, Mr. Chair. And he'll provide the CARB update. Thanks.
No problem. Thanks,
Okay,
Jessica.
young man, go for it.
Okay, thanks. So as Jessica said, my name's Brian, and I work for CARB's Office of Community Air Protection. And I really just have one update that regards the plan revision to the AB 617 statewide strategy, which is outlined in our guidance document, which is known as the program blueprint. Law requires that CARB update that statewide strategy every 5 years, and September 2023 will be that 5 years from the release of the initial program blueprint. So with direction from the AB 617 consultation group, we have released a draft outline of revisions concepts to kind of kick off a larger engagement campaign aimed at maximizing public input into the next version of this blueprint. This engagement will take place this fall and winter with the goal of having a draft blueprint revision at the end of this year. And that's basically it as far as updates on our blueprint revision. I want to thank for the opportunity to give this update. And yeah, I'd be happy to answer any questions from the committee and the public.
Okay, thank you very much, Brian. Appreciate that. At this time, I'll open it up to the CAC members. Any comments or questions of Jessica or Brian? Kelly?
Yeah, Brian, why is there a need for the revision? Thank you.
Oh, I guess legally speaking, there's a statutory requirement that we revise our guidance document or revisit it every 5 years. And I think process-wise, there's a need because it is a relatively new program and we've learned a ton over the last 4 years of the program. So starting maybe just a few months, as Jessica knows, into the program, we were seeing some gaps or some clarification needed in our guidance document.
Thank you.
Any others? Yes, please. Go ahead, Ned, I believe.
Yes, it's Ned Leba. And again, I do want to compliment Jessica. AB 617 in Stockton. I'm on the steering committee, been an advocate for vegetative barriers and urban greening. And I do want to say that after some process, we have gotten, I believe, a commitment to have a recording of the air monitoring close to where we'll have vegetative barriers. And I recommend this for any of the other AB 617 communities. You want to be able to see the hopeful beneficial effect on exposure from any of the measures that you implement. I mean, you have emissions, but you want to think about exposures and you want to think about health. And I think there's a predilection to worry only about emissions. But you want to, if you have an initiative or a measure such as vegetative barriers, you want to get baseline measures of the exposures to humans before, during, and after you have these vegetative barriers or other measures. And you really do want to see if you can have some health studies to demonstrate the actual benefits to health from these measures. So thank you very much, Jessica. I think things worked out well there, and I would recommend that to any of the other AB 617 areas.
Great, thank you very much, Ned. Any other CAC members? Questions for Brian or Jessica? Okay, seeing none, let's go to the public in the north. Any comments in the public?
No public comment in the north.
Great, thank you. Nothing in the south, am I correct? Okay, then let's come back here to central. Anything?
No public comment.
Okay, great. Again, thank you both very much. Appreciate it. Okay, let's go to item number 12, outreach. Young lady, go for it, Jamie. And I also want to thank you very much for you and your staff for everything you did 2 weeks ago on the tour. You did a great job, and it was excellent. So thank you very, very much for all the help on that tour.
And I would be remiss in not thanking you and some other individuals that are a part of the CAC and some of our other stakeholders in making sure that the event, which was a tour of some of the ag operations, exciting operations that are happening here in the Valley with state and federal officials, it was a really great event. So thanks to you as well for that. I want to kick off by talking a little bit about wildfire season. It's here, of course, as you all know. We have been fortunate in that we haven't been pounded quite yet, knock on wood, with wildfire smoke, but we do anticipate that might happen before the end of the year. As I like to remind people, the big fires from 3 years ago, including the Camp Fire, those happened in November. So we still have a ways to go before we're quote unquote out of the woods, no pun intended. We are doing a couple of things to make sure that people are prepared. Of course, there's our wildfire page, which is valleyair.org/wildfires. It has just a ton of information. It will list any wildfires that are currently impacting the Valley. It links you to a variety of tools, including our RANT, our Real-Time Air Advisory Network, and the EPA's Air Now Fire and Smoke Map. The latter is actually probably the one that you want to use when we're really seeing those wildfire impacts. And the reason for that is that they incorporate some of the temporary monitors that are put up by the land managers and a few key personal air sensors that are deemed to be reliable. And they just have a little bit more information than what's on our RAN network. We also are giving folks a lot of information about how to protect themselves. We have two grant programs. One is open and the other is kind of open. The first one is a clean air center grant program. The RFP just closed on that, but what we're looking to do is to open a variety of clean air centers. These are similar to the heat centers, the places when we have those really high triple digits that are open in communities for folks to go and escape the heat. These would be where we would open them up when we're having those wildfire smoke events. Ideally, they will be the same library, senior center, community center, and folks would be able to go, and we will be funding these large industrial strength, they look like refrigerators, clean air purifiers for those locations. And these are purifiers that can purify the air in a fairly large room. So that program is, we just closed the solicitation, and hopefully we'll get those clean air centers up and running here fairly quickly. The second program is our Clean Air Room program, and it's really targeted at our disadvantaged communities, our low and underserved communities, our communities of color. It is opening today, and it will be set up in a way where folks can get a single, smaller, in-home, one-room air purifier that just cleans one room,
250 square feet room. And individuals that live in a disadvantaged community are eligible to receive one of those for free, mailed to their house through a partnership we have with Ace Hardware. We have a limited number of, a limited budget for that. It is a pilot program, but we do anticipate to get out hopefully a little over 1,000 units to those residents who don't have the wherewithal to just run down to Costco or their big box store and get an in-home air purifier. Of course, our messaging when we do have these smoke events, the best thing you can do is stay inside, set up a clean air room. That's a room without the windows, close the windows, close the doors, don't light your candles, don't smoke your cigarettes. Avoid using your open flame stove top and run your purifier as much as you can. We also tell people, remember to change out your air filters. And if you are fortunate enough to have an HVAC system, keep your window air conditioning units maintained and check the little filters that are on those as well. So we really are working with folks to be prepared. We also have been demonstrating with the media the DIY air purifiers, which actually work really great. There's even some indication that they may, in certain instances, work better than some of these store-bought air purifiers. And basically all that is a box fan. Take a MERV 13 HEPA filter, duct tape it to the back of the box fan, and turn it on, and it will clean a room. The studies are showing about the same level of cleanliness as some of these store-bought, big box store HEPA filter clean air purifiers that are out there. So lots. In that regard, we are about to reopen, actually I think it happened yesterday, our Ag UTV grant program. That is an incredibly successful program, and we just reopened it. We just relaunched it. So that's happening this week. Last time it sold out really quickly, sold out. Last time it got fully subscribed really quickly. So if you know anyone that might be interested, send them to our grants page. And then of course, we're preparing for back to school. Our plan is actually to do some in-person outreach at some of the schools during the drop off and pickup, just to make sure that parents are aware of some of our wildfire tools that are out there and places they can go to get information. We've been doing a lot of media. Some has been really great. Shout out to Manuel. I gave him a 5-minute warning a little while ago about a reporter who was going to come and talk to him about some of the great work being done in the Valley with the ag community. With lots of media coverage, and I would say a good 50% of it I'm really happy with. So we're trying to make sure that get that percentage up a little bit higher. With that, the team's busy with a lot of the stuff that Jessica Olson just talked about, and I will say that our bilingual abilities and our bilingual outreach and our bilingual work within the community, and then even our Hmong work within the community. Primarily, we're working in English and Spanish, but then kind of tertiary, we're working in Hmong. We've really turned that up with the team in the last year, and that's really a testament to AB 617, even though we're doing it far beyond just the AB 617 work. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Jamie. Appreciate it. Any members of the CAC questions for Jamie? Okay, seeing none, then I'll go to the public in the north.
No public comments in the north.
Okay, great. Thank you. We'll go to the south. There's no one in the south. Okay, we'll bring it back here to Central. I don't see anybody. So, Jamie, again, thank you all.
I'm sorry. Through the chair, I do have a public comment on Zoom.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
And
please.
I have Lisa Flores.
Okay.
Just real quick question, and to keep me from having to make a phone call after this. Jamie, how do I get one of those air purifiers?
You go to our website, you look for an email. There should be an email coming in to all of our AB 617 members before the end of the day, but I'll make sure that you get one.
Okay, because I got about 3 people already lined up.
Sure, I'll go back and tell the team right now to email you the stuff ASAP.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Again, Jamie, thank you for everything and your whole team and everybody. Appreciate it. Okay, we're just about done. Before we go to CAC members, I want to know if Laura from ARB has come back with what is the workshop that's going to be on Wednesday with with CARB's plan.
Hi, Mr. Chair. Yes, this is Laura here. So the information that I have on this is that it's a listening session, so fairly open-ended, I would say. The idea is to get community members and any interested stakeholders to participate in a listening session. So it is obviously related to the draft 2022 scoping plan update that was released back in May earlier this year. So it's the same version of the scoping plan that the June 2022 board meeting dealt with. So the idea is just to have, like I said, an open-ended opportunity for the CARB board to have this listening session and listen to members of the public, interested stakeholders on any of the topics that are contained within the 2022 scoping plan update.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Laura. At this time, I'll open it to CAC members. Any comments from CAC members before we adjourn? Anybody? Okay, if not here in the central, any comments from board? Okay, I think we're quiet then. Okay. And again, I want to thank everybody for getting on the CAC call. I want to thank you all again personally for taking the time for doing this. And we got done at 1 hour and 15 minutes. That will allow you to achieve some other plans, and we'll keep doing that. Ned, you got to keep reminding me just to stop, and I will do that and cut it off. So again, I want to thank all. I want to thank the staff. Shiraz, thank you very much. And the technical staff and assistants to the board, thank you very, very much. Okay, at this time, if there's no comments,
Just need a volunteer to present.
I'll do the presentation before the board. I'll be happy to if that works. Okay, great. At this time, we'll adjourn.
Great, thank you.
Thank you all
everyone.
very much.
Bye-bye. Have a great day.